Hello, and welcome back to The Exchange. I'm your host, Ruby Jones. Today, we're taking you behind the curtain for a look at what's ahead at one of Colorado's premier cultural institutions, the Denver Center for the Performing Arts. The DCPA has officially announced its 2026 to 2027 Broadway season, featuring an exciting mix of beloved classics, award-winning musicals, and highly anticipated new productions. Whether you're a longtime theater enthusiast or someone who's been thinking about experiencing Broadway for the very first time, there's something for everyone this season. Joining me today is John Ekeberg, Executive Director of Broadway at the Denver Center for the Performing Arts. We'll talk about what audiences can expect from this year's lineup, how the season comes together behind the scenes, and what goes into selecting the shows that make their way to Denver each year. We'll also explore why Broadway subscriptions have become such an important part of the theater experience. Beyond the stage, we discuss what it takes to sustain an organization like DCPA, the remarkable community that continues to support the performing arts in Colorado, and why the Denver Center remains such an important cultural anchor for our region. If you've ever wondered how Broadway comes to Denver, or you're just looking for a reason to spend a little more time in the theater this year, you should stick around for this conversation. Please join me in welcoming John Ekeberg. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thanks, Ruby. It's great to see you.
I'm excited about the DCPA season. 2026, 2027, it seems like it has something in store for everyone, from Beauty and the Beast and classics like Mamma Mia to newer productions like the Buena Vista Social Club and Death Becomes Her, The Great Gatsby. What excites you the most about this particular season?
Yeah, thank you. I think you hit upon one of the goals that we're always looking to fulfill, which is making a broad range of titles and different stories because, as you know, not everyone has the same tastes, but for theater lovers, I think hopefully they get to experience a little bit of everything. So there's brand new shows right out of New York, and then there's returning favorites like you mentioned, Beauty and the Beast. And so hopefully it creates a broad range of titles and stories that over the course of a year satisfy everyone's tastes. You had asked me sort of what I was excited about, and I've been thinking about this most years. What sort of excites me the most are the shows that maybe aren't necessarily as well known, titles like maybe Happy Ending or Buena Vista Social Club, but they're shows that I just, in my heart, feel like the audiences are going to fall in love with. And so I really love when I hear from a patron who came back from a show and said, "Oh, I really didn't know that much about that show, but it was so amazing. I couldn't believe it." And so those are the moments I look forward to and hopefully come this next season.
Well, John, in my mind, you have the coolest job in the world, and I don't know how it works, so I want you to tell me. I'm picturing you attending shows on Broadway all the time, picking out shows that you think our audience would love here in Denver and putting them into the lineup. Is that how it works? Is it a year-round conversation or
Yeah, that's you really sort of nailed it, Ruby. So I'm a full member of the Broadway League, which is the trade organization based out of New York that supports Broadway both in New York and touring. And as a full member of the Broadway League, I'm also a Tony voter. And so part of that responsibility is seeing all the shows that come out in a given season. So I make about probably 10 to 12 trips to New York a year. And as new shows open over the course of the year, I go and see them and keep up on, what's resonating with audiences and what I think might be a good mix of shows in the future for coming to Denver. So yeah, it's a continual sort of conversation and investigation process. But because our industry really is mainly based out of New York, I certainly spend quite a bit of time there seeing all the new shows. Yeah.
Okay, got it. You do have the coolest job
I
in the
well,
world.
yeah, it's hard to say no to that, you know? I'm very
Yeah.
fortunate, there's no question.
Tell me about your background and how did you get involved in this work? And I'm assuming that you were a theatrical production fan or maybe participant at some point in life.
Well, that's interesting you mentioned that. I think unlike a lot of my colleagues, I don't have the traditional background of having come through a drama program in high school or anything like that. I was always very much interested in the arts and culture sort of broadly, but I didn't necessarily start off as a young person in the theater. In essence, I sort of have been very, very fortunate in my life and career to have the opportunity to work with some great mentors. So I had actually moved to Denver from the Midwest back in the early 90s and needed, a job to pay the rent while I sort of figured out what I was going to do out here. And I got a job at the box office, the DCPA. I had had some ticketing experience in my past. And so I came down here completely new to Denver and started selling tickets over the phone to Phantom and Miss Saigon and A Christmas Carol and all the things. And then got to know the people here at the DCPA, got some opportunities for some new roles in the box office. And then there was an opening in our Broadway presenting division for a business manager. At the time, the department was run by a gentleman named Randy Weeks. And he hired me and really ended up teaching me the business of presenting commercial theater and touring Broadway and mixing the creative, artistic aspect of it with balancing the books and a good Excel spreadsheet. And that really, I think, was the ignition to my love of the work and musical theater and commercial theater. So, again, I've just been very fortunate to have an opportunity to work with some really, really wonderful people who inspired me into the job.
I love that. I love when a great career story includes mentorship. I think that's just so important. Well, you talked a little bit about creating a good mix of shows during any given season. And I certainly appreciate that because I love the lineup, like I said. When it comes to Denver audiences, I feel like we've gained kind of a reputation for being a great Broadway city. What is it about Denver that is different in your experience than some of the other markets you've seen?
Well, from what I hear, because the folks who come through, the shows that come through, I always love to speak to their company managers because, they're spending time in St. Louis and Seattle and Minneapolis and Baltimore and all the places. And so I am always fascinated to hear from their lens how Denver might be different. And some of the things that come through are we have really, really wonderful facilities. The Performing Arts Complex, that's owned and operated by the city and county of Denver, and Arts and Venues is a really unique campus of theaters. The Buell Theater is very accommodating and easy to work with. The crews that work there are really seasoned and very, know what they're doing, and that's really appreciated. But you had asked more specifically about the audience. I think, when you see a lot of some of these demographic studies of Colorado and Denver, I believe it was the last NEA survey from several years ago. Colorado was actually the number one state in the country for arts and culture participation, just in terms of people who self-identified that in the last X period of time have sought out arts and culture experiences. And so I think that translates through to our audience and all the opportunities that the arts complex gives. I think we're just very fortunate to have a very engaged community in the arts.
Have you seen any trends when it comes to that demographic data? Are the audiences younger? Are there people who are first time theater goers that are showing up to the theater more, family visitors, or just visitors to the city in general?
Yeah, I think that's again one of the benefits, Ruby, to trying to book a wide range of titles. There's a couple of shows that immediately come to mind that we've had through the theater recently. One being the Broadway show Six, about the six wives of Henry VIII, and then Hadestown. Both of these shows have come through Denver twice. What I love to do is go to opening night and just stand in the lobby like 20 minutes to curtain and watch folks come in and all that sort of thing.
Mm.
And you really do see in some of these shows a younger audience that maybe is not the traditional subscriber audience that we sort of think of necessarily, but there definitely are, I think, just like anything else, certain shows tend to be more appealing to younger or more traditional audiences. But again, that's, I think, what I love about the breadth of what we're able to do and a number of shows and difference in shows we're able to bring is that hopefully you get the new young audience coming in that then learns about the other things coming down the pike, and so it sort of builds on itself. So again, we're very fortunate to be supported by so many different types of audience members.
It sounds
Yeah.
really cool to be able to stand in the lobby and watch the audiences coming in. I wish I could do that. I'm usually running a few minutes late, but what what I love to do is speak to the cast and the people who are coming through and, giving their all on stage and making the audiences in Denver just so proud and happy to be there. A lot of my audience, I don't even know if they realize that they can become subscribers
Mhm.
to these shows and to these rich Broadway seasons. Tell me a little about subscriptions and why people might want to subscribe, even if they're just planning to see a show or two a season.
Sure. Well, we have a couple of different subscription options, but our sort of main core subscription package has 8 shows on it, 7 tours, and then we always put one show on it that's sort of our off-Broadway title that we either produce or present at our small cabaret space, the Garner Galleria Theater. And there's a lot of benefits to signing up for that package. One is that you get the best seats, definitely at the best price, so you always know you'll get the same seats in the Buell Theater, so you know where your seats are. It allows you early access to buy tickets to all the other shows that we bring in. So the shows that are not on the subscription package, but we call them specials. A lot of those are returning favorites, like you had mentioned, Mamma Mia, Riverdance, Jersey Boys. So subscribers get first access to those tickets. And one of the benefits that I was sort of surprised to hear people talk about, I hadn't necessarily thought about it myself, but I'm sure you've either had this happen to yourself or your friends where someone says, "Oh, I really want to see a show," and then it comes and goes, and before they know it, it's gone, and they didn't get tickets to it, and it just sort of slipped through because we're all busy and that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
so this way, you actually get, by paying up front, or we actually have payment plans, but from committing to the subscription up front, you're done. The tickets are done. You've got them. You can put it on your calendar. It can be date night or night with friends or what have you, and you don't have to worry about missing a show. And I thought, "Oh, that's interesting how many people list that as one of the benefits of making that commitment up front." So, those are some of the good reasons to join us.
That makes total sense. That has happened to me, and it has happened to colleagues and friends of mine. We'll talk about a show and they're like, "Well, I wanna see it," and then next thing you know, it's gone, but I also have colleagues and friends who do have subscriptions, and so when they talk about the show, it does tend to be different. They're looking for someone to go with them, or they're trying to decide whether it'll be a date night and they'll bring their husband, or a friend night and they'll just go. I think the process of going to the theater, the whole evening is just so nice, or the matinee is so nice, especially with some of the other wonderful attractions in downtown Denver. So, DCPA has cultivated this really loyal community over the years. Can you talk to me a little bit about, beyond selling tickets, what it takes to really maintain or sustain an organization like this over decades?
Yeah, so we are a private not for profit. And apart from the Broadway touring programming that we do, we also have a local regional theater that produces 7 to 8 shows a year, like A Christmas Carol, Little Shop of Horrors, English. I'm just naming some of the titles from the recent past. And we also have a very robust educational program where we have many, many classes, summer programs. We have students coming down as we speak for summer programs. And so the money that comes through ticket sales and or donations help support this other work that we do that's so important. And another thing, while I'm thinking about it, Ruby, that I want to point out about support is I suspect you're familiar with the SCFD, the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District tax, but
Yeah.
that's an amazing, amazing tax that supports so many culturals in the Denver metro area. And it's a wonderful show of support from our community that tells us how important arts and culture is and helps lift up so many of these, not just the Denver Center for the Performing Arts, but so many other arts and culture organizations in the community. So, yeah, I think sometimes people are surprised that we're a not for profit, but it's a very important part of our mission to support students and young people and self-produced artists here who get to work in the community to build shows for the theater company. And so all of it goes to support, arts and culture in downtown Denver and for the region more broadly.
I love DCPA. I really appreciate the fact that your entire ecosystem, it is an economic driver for the city, for the state. And, I see the people who are being employed and it just seems so inclusive. Everyone seems happy to be there. So I love that and great job. Keep up the great work.
Thanks. Well, you touched on something that also we like to talk about is theater is a very labor intensive business. Not only what you see on the stage in terms of actors and musicians, but backstage there are stagehands, wardrobe attendants. We have the ushers, the security folks, box office people, administration. Arts and culture really does employ so many people in our region. And so that's, again, another reason to support and the importance of it is it provides wonderful jobs for people in our community.
As we begin to wrap up, you mentioned something early on that I'd like to go back to, and that is the lesser known title. I'm wondering if there is a show this season that audiences might be overlooking that you think could be a surprise favorite.
I'll bring up maybe Happy Ending again. It's the final show on our season in the summer of 27. It won the Tony Award. It won multiple Tony Awards, but including the Tony Award for Best Musical, Best New Musical in its season. It, just has a cast of 4, so from a cast perspective, it's very small. At its heart, it's sort of a story about friendship and romance and is just I don't wanna give away too much about but I'll give the sort of quick elevator pitch, which is that it takes place in the future in 2064 in Seoul, South Korea, and it envisions a future in where elderly humans are cared for by very lifelike helper robots. In this world, much like, I don't know, technology like an iPhone or something, when it sort of gets past when it ages out of its software, the same thing happens with these helper bots. And so the helper bots themselves go to care facilities to sort of play out the rest of their lives. And so the story is about 2 helper bots who are no longer working, who meet each other and develop a relationship. And so it's such a unique story to start from, but it becomes a very universal story about connection and what it means to be connected to another soul or another individual, and some real beautiful production value stuff. So that again is one that I expect a lot of folks aren't going to know much about, but I'm I'm confident they'll love it anyway.
I'm so happy to hear that. I have a close friend who works with the Next 50 initiative, and my organization is very heavily focused on intergenerational collaboration and co-creation and the whole age spectrum. So I can't wait to see
Mhm.
that. That's really cool.
Yeah,
Great
you'll be right.
storyline. Okay, my last question for you.
Okay.
As people are leaving the theater, what do you hope they take with them besides just great memories?
This is going to sound, I guess, a little self-serving, but we always hope that after the experience, they're so excited that they want to do it again, right? That they've had a lovely time in the theater, heard a wonderful story, hopefully been inspired, moved, maybe somehow changed or thought about something different than when they walked in, and that it inspires them to tell other people about it, tell people what arts and culture, how it can really make a positive change in your life. So, I mean, that's the hope, and that people join us on that journey moving forward.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Mr. John Ekeberg, the man with the most interesting job in the world. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Ruby. It's wonderful to see you.